Folks, we are live. Got my friend Brian. Is it Carruthers?
Carruthers. Carruthers.
All right, so Brian's here with me today, and I don't know if Brian likes to be, he doesn't like to talk too high on himself, but he's what we call a whale in this hobby. He's got the funds to pretty much buy any Pokemon card or product out there, and he's also had the experience of going through many different collectible markets, such as before the 90s sports card boom, into the boom, out of it, rediscovering Pokemon with his kids, getting into it, seriously, while also, running his business, being in real estate, investing in the stock market, doing a lot. He's got his hands in a lot of different places. And so I think this is going to be really special because you're going to get to hear a different perspective other than, people who maybe do Pokemon full time or, maybe just kind of got lucky and started collecting this stuff and the values rose. And also someone who's been around in collectibles just a long time. So I think there's a lot that we're going to get into today. But Brian, I tried to give a good introduction, but, you can pick it up here. What do you want to tell everyone about yourself, man?
Well, first of all, Alex, I appreciate you having me on. I've been following your channel and consuming what you've been putting out for several months now. I love your perspective. Everybody thinks they're right. The Pokemon industry is going to collapse. It's a junk wax, a junk whatever era, or everything's going to go up. So I like to hear all sides. I like to hear, take it all in. But you do a great job. So thank you, man. So my story, as a kid, my parents bought me my first pack of baseball cards at a convenience store when I was like 12 years old. By the way, I'm old. That was in 1982, by the way. And I discovered cards and I started collecting cards. My cousin and I, who was a year younger than me, we would go to the convenience store and buy cards whenever we could. And I became an entrepreneur because I wanted to buy more cards. So as a young kid, at 12 years old, I was cutting lawns in my neighborhood. By the time I was 15, I had 11 lawn jobs that I did every single week. I would shovel snow. I would rake leaves. I would do a car wash out in our driveway for neighbors' cars. I would do whatever I could to buy more cards. And then when I was 15, I became a dealer, and my mom would drop me off at a card show a couple times a month, and I would sell cards at a card show. By the time I was 17, I had a direct distributorship with Topps, Fleer, Donruss, and Score. And then in 89, I got picked up Upper Deck. So I was probably the youngest, I would think, direct dealer in the country in the sports card game. And what I really loved about it, Men's Journal just did a recent story about me and my journey several months ago about this. I learned a lot about entrepreneurship through cards, and I also learned a lot about speculating and investing. So I'll give you an example, Ryan. Mark McGwire, 1985 Topps was his rookie card. I was buying those cards for 22 cents each. I bought a couple hundred of them. I flipped out of most of them at $10 a piece, and then some at $20. Nowadays, a PSA 10 graded one sells for a few grand. We didn't have PSA grading back then. But so I took what I learned from the card world and applied it in my later life outside of cards. And I'll share that story with you in a second. But that was back then, by the way, the junk wax era that everybody keeps referencing, the late 80s, early 90s. And so here's what's interesting. I went on, became a real estate agent. I was doing decent in my 20s, making $100,000 a year in real estate. But I was focused on real estate. I stopped doing cards in 1993. Cards kind of slid back, and people weren't really, the junk wax era kind of ended my run there. About 6 years ago, I got a phone call from my parents that said, "Brian, can you get all your shit out of my house? Or can you get all your shit out of here?" I'm like, "Oh, come on." I was dreading that day because I had about 2.5 million cards still in multiple rooms at my parents' house. And so they were moving. I had to move them. I looked up some of the values, and they weren't worth a whole lot anymore. And so I called up Toys for Tots, and I said, "Hey, come take all this." They're like, "Okay." They brought a truck, a big moving truck. 4 police officers came. We loaded it up for hours, filled it, had 2 police cruisers, loaded up the back seats of those cars, and they took it all away. I took a little deduction off my taxes and away, and that's how it ended. And a couple of years after that, COVID hits. And The Last Dance with Michael Jordan was a docuseries, and cards exploded, Michael Jordan exploded, everything was rising. Pokemon, just soon took off after that. And that was right when my son was 13 years old. And, I'd watched him doing Pokemon cards, just buying some packs, when he was a little younger. I was making fun of him. Why are you wasting money on Pokemon cards? Come on, man. Anyway, so long story short, he got into sports cards with me. He got me into Pokemon cards, and away we went. So during COVID, I was just going nuts. I mean, I've spent probably 800 grand on cards just in the last 3 years, sports cards and Pokemon cards. But and I'll throw it back to you here in a second. The knowledge that I learned from speculating on like rookie cards in the sports card world, and some of them turned out, some of them flopped, but some of them turned out, you make a bunch of money. I did the same thing in the stock world. And so some of my stocks went to nothing or didn't do well. They didn't do nothing. Most companies don't go out of business, but they didn't do great. But some of them, like Apple, I'm up like 1,700% on my Apple investment. And if I told you how many shares of Apple I have, it's enough to put a financial moat around my family for generations, frankly. So, so that's what Men's Journal did a story on, was how I got my start in cards. I applied what I learned in my later life with investments and so forth. And then full circle, now I'm teaching my son, who's now 17 as of this week, I'm teaching him through cards, which we bond over. We have an absolute blast doing cards together. And now he's also invested in some crypto, which, I'm not really that big of a fan of some of the stuff he plays with there, but he's got a little stock portfolio. He's got a great card collection. He's got some sealed products. So anyway, back to you.
No, yeah, I see a lot of people in the chat talking about, nice resume and where have I seen this guy before? I'll go ahead and share the screen really fast for everyone. So here's Brian's Instagram. If you want to go check him out, it's real Brian Carruthers. 120,000 followers, everyone. Not only that, here's his website. He's met people like little guys, little guys like Grant Cardone's friends with and Tony Robbins, Richard Branson, some Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank, those types of people. So, I mean, all in all, this guy's been all over the place. The investment world, financial world, real estate world, and now the cardboard. I mean, ever since he was, young, like he told you. So that's why I really wanted to have Brian on. This is just such a different perspective than we normally see on this channel or in any of these Pokemon, investment live streams on anyone's channel. So, so that's a huge thing that everyone's always worried about is this net, is Pokemon going to go through this another, down spell, like kind of like it did in like 01, 02 up to like 14, 15. And I always say no, because I think everything's changed, right? Like we have social media now. We didn't back then. We have, here's one thing I'm going to pass back to you to see what you think, but just how you're teaching your kid. I always have, I try to look out less like the micro things, less of like the pop reports and supply and all those little things. I try to like look out at like kind of the macro view of it. And I see why are kids, trying to become streamers and YouTubers and video game players now? Because they've seen other people gain success they've seen it's possible. And I think it's the same thing with Pokemon cards now. Like back when I was a kid, our parents bought them as like, okay, here, shut up. Here, I'll buy you some cards. I'll buy you some toys. And they didn't believe in it. They didn't value it. They just gave it to us. Well, now these kids are growing up with seeing their parents, our age, being successful with Pokemon. They see their collection growing. They see the values rising. They're getting involved. And now they're becoming of age. Like you said, 17. They still see how successful things are, how great the market is. I think it's kind of just like the natural flow of things. They're going to flow into it because they want to, kind of get on some of the success that you have because now they have their own money. So how do you see this next generation, especially like your son, kind of going in the next 5-10 years with the hobby?
Yeah, no, great insight. I don't see it ever going backwards. It may plateau for a little while. The reason why the boom is happening in the last couple of years in Pokemon, my opinion, is because the kids back in the year 2000 or the early 2000s that were collecting cards as collectibles as kids, they liked the look of the cards or they played the game. They are now, those kids are now in their 30s and they're in their highest earning days of their lives so far. They may have discretionary income. Sure, there was COVID money that was the stimulus checks came out. So that was a blip that we're not going to see again in our lifetime. I don't think. I hope not. But regardless, when when the nostalgia, I like your nostalgianomics, when the nostalgia comes into play, when somebody's got money and they can go back and buy things they wish they had from back in the day, that's what's happened. And that's going to happen again. I think that the cycles will be tighter. I think a lot of the people like you and I, and a lot of the watchers right now probably are really into cards right now. I don't think that there's a lot of us that are going to go away. Some of the flippers that wanted to go to Walmart or Target and buy them and flip them the next day for double the profit, that was happening 2 years ago. They were flipping sneakers. They were flipping this. They're going to flip burgers. I don't care. They'll be flipping something else later, but that's not who I'm talking about. By the way, some of the flippers are now collectors and investors. Mm-hmm. They fell in love with the stuff they were flipping. So I think some of them are here to stay. But my perspective on it is the IP of Pokemon is so massive, and it ain't going anywhere but bigger. And not just in the US, but it's worldwide. You go over to Europe, you go to England, they're not collecting baseball cards or basketball or football cards. They're collecting Pokemon non-sport like this. So this is a worldwide opportunity. And when I said on your channel yesterday, and you're like, what's he talking about? Drug dealer. I gave it a kind of a flip or funny idea, but it's true in my opinion. Though the way that you expand card values, like the market cap of the whole industry, new money comes in. If new money comes in, we're all just trading money and cards back and forth. And so individual cards can go up, but the whole overall value doesn't go up unless you bring in new demand. New wallets or pocketbooks need to come in. New collectors need to come in. How's that going to happen? I had a conversation with Jeff Wilson. I have a conversation with a couple other YouTubers about the sports card world. And that's why I share it with you as a PokeTuber here. Frankly, the more education that can be provided to newbies, like brand new people that can learn about this hobby and fall in love with, the better. So, I've got, when I open a bunch of ETBs looking for a chase card or whatever with my son, we have all these boxes of common cards. What do you do with them? You can sell them for a fraction of a penny to some of these people that take all the bulk in, but I don't need the money. What I would prefer, I'll go to places where there's kids and just hand a stack of cards. So, hey, do you like Pokemon? Here, have these. And that might just be like, oh, these are cool. And then next time they see it, they're at the store with their mom and they see a Pokemon pack at the register, maybe they buy their first pack on their own and see if they pull a shiny card out of it. And then now, and again, I'm not, you joke about it like it, you give them their first drugs, now they're addicted. But it's kind of like that, right? But in a positive way, like, how cool is it that a kid discovers Pokemon and maybe their parent, their mom or dad, starts getting into it with them? The biggest bond I have with my 17-year-old is cards. Like he doesn't like fishing. He doesn't like golfing, which are my two favorite pastimes, but we do cards together and we're talking about it and we're doing it all the time. It's just so cool.
Yeah, that's truly amazing. Just saying that. I mean, I think a lot of people have that story too. It's just, it's something that can easily, kind of bridge that gap of generations. I mean, the love for things like this. So
by the way, I don't want to cut you off. Sorry, man.
Go ahead.
I teach people in my business world. People become entrepreneurs. So I teach people wealth building and entrepreneurship. It's daunting for a lot of people to think about becoming an entrepreneur because that is against the grain. Like the common path for most people is to go be a W-2 employee and get a paycheck from a boss somewhere. That's what most people do. The people that have some guts and they want to go out there and cut their path on their own, they try to become their own boss. They become an entrepreneur. But this world is full of starters, but not very many finishers. Most people become an entrepreneur and they quit. They go racing back to get a job again, which is their little comfort zone. They want that safety. My friend Robert Kiyosaki, who wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is a great book. Everybody should read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He said, if you still believe in job security, you probably still believe in Easter Bunny. Like job security doesn't exist. So my recommendation to all the Pokemon collectors / investors, if you're and look, here's the thing. I mean, yes, there's going to be some true blue, like pure collectors, and you only want to get cards because you like looking at them and you don't care what they're worth. But I think that's like a rare unicorn. Yeah. Like for the people that get on YouTube and they get in the comment section and they're like trying to be all grandiose and and altruistic, like, oh, stop worrying about the cost of cards and the values and trying to make money off. If you got a collection of cards, you want them to be worth at least at or more than what you paid for them, even if you try to be, say you're not. So I say all that to say, if you're in this world of Pokemon cards or sports card collectibles or whatever, stay the course. Don't get shaken out. Don't go watch, because you know what people are doing? They're putting clickbait headlines on their social media stuff so that people will open up the video and consume the content so they can get paid for those views. And they'll put like Pokemon going to zero, or they'll say the crash is coming, or junk back. Look, everybody does it. I've got to create, for what I do, I got to create headlines that's going to get their attention. So I understand why it works. But if you see enough of that, you start to doubt.
Yeah.
Just reading the headlines, you start going, oh, maybe a crash is coming. And then you get shaken out. You and I
we're seeing it right now in the real world, right? I mean, we're seeing it with, the stock market. I mean, all we've heard for the past year is how, doomsday's here. Everything's going to crash. The everything crashed, the great reset, everything, all this terrible news. Meanwhile, the stocks are hitting their year high. I mean, some stocks are already recovered from every downturn they had in the last couple of years. It's absolutely incredible. And if you would have listened to all that, you would have got shaken out, been scared to take action, and you'd have missed out on like one of the biggest bull market, but a gigantic bull market.
They were saying it's going to be a recession. I was expecting a recession, but I held tight. Just in the last 4 months, I'm up $4.2 million in just my stock portfolio. What if I listened to everybody else and sold off at the bottom because they were trying to scare you? People believed that the recession was going to be a hard one. It's not like they were trying to scare people on purpose, like maliciously, but they're perpetuating the narrative that bad stuff's going to happen and you should sell. Here's the thing. I don't mind when people say Pokemon is going to hit hard times, because I'm just going to go buy more. It gives me a better entry point. So I don't mind it. But for anybody that wants to be smart, and I'm not here again, I know we should always do disclaimers. I'm not here to tell anybody what to do. I'm telling you what I'm doing conceptually, so you understand my philosophy and my thought process. If you make money or lose money in anything that you invest in, I want no responsibility for it. So that's my disclaimer. But,
absolutely. We're not financial advisors. No, but what you were saying before, it kind of brings me right back into the next topic I wanted to touch on is, so one, every month when you got your new income coming in, how do you decide, where it goes, whether it be real estate, more in the stock market, into Pokemon and cards. And then also when you do decide to move it into those cards, what are you buying? I mean, what are you going after? You going after sealed? Are you going after, high end, very rare, very scarce, like vintage, Japanese, like the high end stuff? Are you going for more like the, mass popularity stuff in modern? Where do you allocate those funds? I'm just curious.
Sure. Let me unpack that first and foremost.
Yeah.
This is the third book that I wrote. It's called Money Mindset. And I wrote this book because I work with many people who have learned how to generate more income, but they were churning and burning. Like they had income coming in, but they were spending it all. If you want to build wealth, it has to be intentional. It has to be conscious. So this is off the subject of Pokemon cards, but I want to give value to everybody watching right now that can be transformative in your life. Most people have an adverse relationship with money. If you ever heard that rich people are greedy, or the love of money is the root of all evil, you hear these things, and it causes you to unconsciously have this weird friction with your thought process around money. Like it's not cool to want a bunch of money or to talk about money. So because of that, you repel money. Now you might say, well, I don't repel money. I make money. Well, yeah, but you don't realize you're repelling money when you are. See, here's the thing. Most people, if you're making $6,000 a month at your job and your bills, your cost of living is $5,000, you make the 6, you pay the 5, and you got the extra 1,000, you blow it. Why? Because that money was not important to you. It's dirty. People who have a lot of money are greedy. It's the root of all evil. So you spend it, you blow it because it was extra money. How in the world are you ever going to build wealth and put you in a position to be financially free and not have somebody else dictate what you do with your life. If you live like that,
Absolutely.
that's a life of servicing debt. That's a slave to money. I wrote my most recent book, Untrapped. I wrote this one is because most people are trapped. They look like that guy right there on a treadmill to oblivion, going nowhere fast. You'll never get off the treadmill. You'll never stop trading your time for money unless you get yourself assets that will keep on paying you passive money without you having to work for it. Now, how do you do that? I'm not going to get into the how-tos, but the Money Mindset book, the reason why I bring it up is you have to start deciding I want to build wealth because money is good. You can do good things with money. If somebody in your household, your family got really sick and they needed $30,000 to go to Mexico to get treatment that can save their life, wouldn't you feel amazing? Wouldn't you love the ability to write a check so they can go to Mexico? But if you haven't had a strategy and a plan to build your wealth, then you'll have to cry and wish that you had the money to be able to do that for your family member. So I bring it up because here's the thing. On page 45, let me go find it here, 44. I've got a chart in here, and you won't be able to see it on the screen. But by the way, I don't make squat selling books. Anybody thinks, people who are authors make a lot. No, authors don't make squat unless you're J.K. Rowling or somebody like that doing fiction. Anybody who writes nonfiction books, you don't make squat. There's no money in it. But go buy this book. No, seriously. I mean, I make a few dollars a book, so it's not like I'm making money on it.
I know. That was a good.
It can change your life. Yeah. And Alex, here's the thing. The book is $14, I think, at retail. A $14 book. There will be people that be like, man, I'm not blowing $14 to go get a book. But then they wonder why the rest of their life they're broke, living check to check. You've got to.
What's the chart in there?
Let me share with you the chart. So the chart, I've got a chart here of when you talk about money coming in, and you can do this at any level. I don't care if you make 20 grand a year or 20 grand a month in your life right now. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
If you have a strategy and a commitment to paying yourself first. I had a billionaire, Paul J. Meyer, who's no longer alive, but he taught pay yourself first. He was a mentor of mine for years. Pay yourself 10% first. Give God 10% and live off the other 80. Okay? If you don't believe in God, then give 10% to charity. Doesn't matter.
So you're saying before you pay your bills, you're saying do that?
Before you pay your bills. And David Bach, the author of Automatic Millionaire, teaches you how to just contact your bank and set it up where it comes out automatically, so it's not even relying on your discipline. Just have 10% coming out of your check. And as your income goes up, you don't have to increase your spending. Pay yourself 20%, 30%, 40%. So you can increase your investing when your income goes up. But here's the thing. If you get a 10% annual return on your money,
okay,
which is the S&P stock index average over the last 50 years, 10%,
right?
And just let it don't take the money out, just let it compound. So a 10% compounded return, if you just did $5 a day, $150 a month. Everybody can find $150 a month out of their earnings to put away to invest in themselves and their future. In 10 years, it turns into $31,000. 20 years, $114,000. 30 years, $341,000. 40 years, $956,000. People say, how will I ever be able to retire? So
don't invest in Pokemon then.
but dude, watch your own channel. Can you get 10% on a booster box on an annual basis? Hell yeah. I mean, show me a booster box that has not gone up over time 10% a year.
Right.
I wish I could find some that are that low and that slow. Right. So you can find it in the S&P. You can find it in Pokemon. If you did $300 a month, $10 a day, $300 a month, then in 10 years, that's 62,000, 20 years, 229,000, 30 years, 683,000, 40 years, 1.9 million. I say find a way to make an extra $600 a month.
Okay.
Flipping cards, heck, driving for Uber, getting a home-based business of some sort, whatever. Okay. $600 a month in 10 years, 123 grand, 20 years, 459 grand, 30 years, 1.3 million, 40 years, $3.8 million. And heck, if you go out and you do $3,000 a month, I know people in cards that make $3,000 a month. Don't spend it. Don't go to Disney World. in 10 years, turn that into 619 grand, 20 years, 2.3 million, and 30 years, 6.8 million, and 40 years, $19 million. So that chart will show you at a 10% compounded return and what that can mean to you. So I say all that to say, let me answer the question regarding Pokemon.
Right.
I put money into different things. I put money in the stock market because I got good at that. I just had a stock that I bought 2 months ago, Sirius Satellite Radio. Last week went from 350 in a day. Short covering happened, and suddenly it went to over $7.50.
Not stock advice, not financial advice.
Just giving you an example, right? So I flipped out of that. That was a fairly short-term holding. I flipped out 60,000 shares, and I made a multiple six-figure return on that. There's other stocks that have gone down. So that's just one victory story, right?
Which actually plays into a lot of something people always are, debating about, which is a stupid debate. But guys, there's no set time frame on any investment. Now you could say that was a trade, or that was a flip, or someone who buys a Pokemon card. Oh, that was a flip. That wasn't an investment. Anything that you move into with the mindset of I'm going to hold this with the intent of it rising in value in the future, you invested. Now, like Brian said, just so happened that rose very quickly in 2 months, so he got out of it. It might take 2 years. The time frame is not important. You don't have to hold something for a certain amount of time. So kind of try to get that out of your head. Sometimes it is going to be 6 months. Sometimes it's going to be 5 years. But when you found the rate of return you want, when you see that you feel like it's reached a point where it's not going to have as much extended growth, it might make time to move out, just because, even though it hasn't aged long enough to be considered a real investment by some people. Just keep that in mind. Be able to be fluid with your money.
Yeah. So let me unpack it a little bit deeper, and then we'll get into the cards. The Sirius Satellite Radio, I only bought it because I felt it was unjustly punished. It was trading in the last year in the $5.56 range. It went down in the mid threes, and it was not for even in a recession. Are people canceling their $12 a month Sirius Satellite Radio? Do you think they're going to go back to listening to terrestrial radio in their car when they love their channels they listen to? No. So it was I just saw an opportunity to just arbitrage that situation and just, ride it back to where it should be all along. And when it got there, I sold. Apple, for example, a different scenario. I bought Apple and I held Apple because I saw Apple being a big monster player that's going to be doing a lot of amazing things into the future. So you take a look at Apple. If you pull up Apple, pull up the Apple chart and go back to the full history. I use Apple Finance as well. So go to the full max history on Apple, APPL. Yep, AAPL.
Yeah, I'm trying to hit on it. All right.
And go to the max.
Yep.
Look at that. I mean, so I was buying it. And
even the past years, it's pretty crazy. I mean, especially if you got any of these dips, I mean, you're talking 50% return, I mean, almost 50% return.
Look at the 5-year chart.
Yeah.
So look at the 5-year chart.
200 or 400%.
If I was a short-term guy, then I could have flipped out early, 4, 5, 3 years ago, and I would have made great returns, but I would have missed the continued rise. So part of investing is, what's your time horizon? Like, when do you need the money out? If your time horizon, like, I need to pay for college tuition and I only have 2 years to invest and I got to pay for college, then your horizon is going to dictate what you're going to have to do. My Apple play, that was a long-term, build it for my legacy, generational wealth play. I have felt, and I still feel like Apple is going to be a juggernaut, 5, 10, 20 years from now. And they'll be into cars, they'll be into spaceships, they'll be into everything. So I'll never get rid of that. So anyway, so going back to cards, what am I doing with cards? I'm in sports and Pokemon cards.
Okay.
I probably 60, 70% sports and 30, 40% Pokemon. What I love about Pokemon
is that changing at all? Are you is it becoming more Pokemon?
Maybe it doesn't. It's not like by design. It's just kind of where it's kind of landed right now.
No, I'm saying like as we keep progressing, you feel yourself putting more into Pokemon, buying more than sports? Or
I don't know. I'm just going to go with my gut and how I'm feeling, where the market is. I mean, if I see a dip in Pokemon, I'll go in heavy. If I see opportunities, if I see a set that comes out, like I'm a big fan of Crown Zenith.
Same.
Or by other people, Crown Zenith. I don't understand the Crown Zenith people. I'm a Zenith. We should do a whole pokey show on Zenith versus Zenith. It's Zenith, by the way. So I love Crown Zenith. There's certain products that I think that are undervalued, or people are don't think that they're going to be as great as I think they're going to be. So I take advantage of that. And by the way, I'm a big believer in sealed because it's the safest play. It's not fun. It's not fun to buy boxes and to start salivating every time you walk by them. I put them out of sight. I'll show you what I did this morning. My wife and 2 youngest went to the beach, and my oldest and I are going to go tomorrow morning. I cracked 3 boxes of sports cards today because I was bored and I had an hour with no supervision. So I went ahead and cracked some cards, and I did not make the money back out of the cost of those boxes. So, but sealed is going to always increase in value because all of us that are addicted to opening packs are going to continue to diminish the supply of sealed product over time. So I'm a big believer in that. Now, I also love Pokemon cards. I'm saying that as a 52-year-old man who used to say, Talon, my son, why are you buying those silly little cards? But check out, you can't not like some of these. Look at this one. That's a PSA 9 reverse hollow legendary Charizard. It is freaking beautiful. I mean, it's a $4,000 card at last comps. I bought a small collection off of somebody I found on social media here in Virginia. They had like a little binder with like 100 cards in it, and most of them were like the tops ones. And
now, are you one of the? Are you okay with buying graded cards, or do you grade them yourself? Are you a little bit of both?
I'll buy graded cards, sure. I mean, this one, I bought that little collection out of a binder, and hallelujah, it's a Spectra and it graded a 10. These usually have scratches on them, so to get a 10, I was beside myself. I pulled one of these and I bought one of these. Like, this is not a big card. When it came out, Vivid Voltage just was the big chase card at the time.
Yep.
I think it got up to like $800 in a PSA 10. Now you can get it for the high 200s. And you guys know how hard this card was to pull? Like, you know how many Vivid Voltage packs you had to, I mean, what's his name? Leonhard or whatever. I mean, he was like opening so many Vivid Voltage packs and never pulled one. I don't know if maybe he's pulled one, recently, but to me, if and when Pokemon, like this era of cards really goes to where I think it goes, I think this is a $1,000 card one day. Now, don't go buy it because I said that, but I think,
so, I mean, that's great to hear because, some people in the chat right now very much believe, they're against buying plastic. They're against buying slabs. Like, they think it's, people are for some reason irrational about, like overpaying for them. I'm very much on the side of, I think slabs can be just as much investments as sealed can be. I like sealed because, obviously it's a little more as guaranteed as it can get. I mean, I don't like to use that word, but it's much more likely to move in value. It always has. But the thing with singles that's where you make those exponential gains. It's kind of like sealeds, almost like a mutual fund, and the singles are like hitting that single stock, like hitting Apple or Sirius, And so, yeah, I think there's, people always ask me that, like, well, can you, should I just flip the slabs? Like, it all depends on what you're trying to do. If you need the quick money, or like you said, you can't sit on it, you're worried about an expense coming up, well, then don't. But yeah, I mean, anyone who wants to like hold slabs and they think they can grow in value, I agree. I mean, I think slabs, especially the rare, the scarce ones, there's definitely room to move.
Yeah, but look, I mean, here's what's fun about the hobby. You buy packs hoping to get the chase card. That's treasure hunt number 1. Pulling a good card out of a pack. Treasure hunt number 1. Treasure hunt number 2, going through all the pulls and treasure hunting for the gems. And you send it into PSA or wherever you send it to, and you fingers crossed, say your prayers, and hopefully it comes back a gem. That's your treasure hunt. That's your gamble number 2. Gamble 1, ripping packs. Gamble 2, trying to get a gem. Look, there's going to be people that don't care about slabs. They'll just collect raw cards. So those people might be like, well, I don't like slabs. for people that collect slabs, like I prefer all of my cards in my collection, my PC, I want them to be slabbed. It protects them. They're liquid. Like if I go to sell a raw card online on eBay, you know, I don't like buying raw cards on eBay because 9 out of 10 times they come and there's some kind of a flaw on them, and I wasn't there to see it with my own eyes. So if there's a card I want and I want to be assured it's a specific grade, I'm going to have to buy the slab. So it's a guarantee. It's liquid. I can go on and sell it. I know what the value is. A raw card is not the same. I think that going forward, you know, grading and slabs are not going away. It's just going to get more. I think it's just going to get more popular. And frankly, there's, you know, if somebody is a PSA 9 collector, a PSA 10 collector, and they want this chunky chew, whatever, then guess what? They're going to have to find somebody who's got a 10, or they're going to have to go rip a whole ton of packs. So,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, and then perfect example is you just cracking those 3 boxes just for fun. I mean, you know, it kind of goes into the whole, like the attrition of the sealed product over time is, you know, yes, money needs to keep coming in the hobby to grow the hobby and grow the cards. But like, I always think about, you know, as terms of market cap with sealed product, technically, no new money needs to come into sealed product for it to rise in value, because as every day those products are going down, the value can actually rise and the market cap can be the same, you know, less supply, higher price. So technically, I mean, if the same amount of money stayed in that product and more is kept getting opened, the price could still rise, as opposed to like with, you know, slabs, that kind of is an issue because the population is always going up. So you do need new money to pour into those.
You do need new money because you just said it right there. When you open more product, seal gets opened, more singles are in the market, and the single values go down, and the single values are what drives the price of the seal to go up. So without any new money coming into the hobby, then it's basically taking a apple out of one hand and putting it in the other hand, but there's no new apples. You know, so, but there are people that do enjoy collecting sealed product to display in their collection. So to that point, my belief is sealed product is, for me, the safest play as far as an investment. It's not.
You heard it here first, folks.
No, I think you've been saying it for a long time. So I'm basically agreeing with what you've been telling people for a long time. And I see you arguing the point, and other people that take the other side of that argument with you. Here's the great. That's what makes markets. When I sell a stock, a share of stock sells, you know what happened? There was a buyer and a seller. Somebody wanted to buy, somebody wanted to sell. When a card sells or a booster box sells, somebody felt it was time to get out of it and somebody felt it was time to get into it. That's what makes a market.
Which is a great point, because everyone always feels like there's winners and losers. Like, you know, someone feels like when they sold something, like, oh God, I offloaded it on him. Not true. Like I could sell a box at 300. They could sell that same box at 500. That person can sell that same box at 800. And each time someone won, right? I mean, you don't, just because you're selling something and you feel like it's reached some sort of plateau, or you've, you know, already got the profits you wanted out of it, it doesn't mean there's no meat on the bone left. It doesn't necessarily mean there's a winner and a loser in a transaction. There can be, I mean, I know I'm not trying to say this is infinitely going to go up, but there can be technically an infinite amount of winners. I mean, if each person continue to sell on the way up, I mean, there can be losers too on the way when things go down, but you know, there isn't always a winner and a loser in every transaction.
So, but that has everything to do with timing. And you can't always perfectly predict timing of a market, but people who were buying in the spike of COVID, in the first quarter of 2021, for example, when Kobe Bryant rookie cards were selling for 10 grand and now they're 1 grand. You know, you see the same thing in Pokemon, where if you were a buyer at the top of that cycle or trend or that spike, and then you decided to sell it now because you got to pay your bills, or you're going to college, you need the tuition money. If your time horizon caused you to actually buy at the high and sell at the low, then you lost. And that's the way every kind of market actually, that's always a reality. You know, so yeah, people who bought at a spike high either need a long time horizon to get back there. And will that take 2 years, 5 years, 20 years, 40 years? Who knows? But your time horizon has everything to do whether you lose when you bought it at the high of a trend.
So we're in agreement on the sealed product side of things. Obviously we, as time ages, attrition of the product, it rises over time. But as far as the slabs, what, whether it be sports cards or Pokemon, you can choose either one or talk about both. What kind of goes into your, your analysis of when you go to buy? I mean, is it strictly just like you like it, you like the artwork, you think it's going to be it's a popular Pokemon, it's one of the best hits, you think it's going to do well? Do you look at pop reports at all? Do you worry about that? Do you worry about like how many, how much the set was printed, or what kind of goes into what you're like you look for when you go in to buy a slab?
I think I don't buy a ton investing wise of individual cards or slabs of Pokemon anyway. But I do factor in everything you just said. And what I like about Pokemon versus sports, Joe Burrow during practice yesterday strained his calf. That's scary because I got a lot of money in Joe Burrow cards and a lot of sealed product of 2020 football. I mean, thousands of dollars of 2020 football stuff. So
Charizard never breaks his leg.
Charizard doesn't get injured, right? So, from that standpoint, what are the collectors that are coming in now? If somebody comes in now, what are their favorite characters going to be? Is it going to be a Charizard or a Pikachu or a Blastoise, whatever? What is it going to be? And when they go backwards, what are the ones they're going to have must-haves for their collection? Whether somebody comes on today, 5, 10, 20 years from now, the new collectors coming in that want those cards, which ones are they going to want? If they're a Pikachu collector, they're going to want this in their collection.
Right.
So would I love to have 500 PSA 10s of this card? For sure. And believe me, I'll back up the truck. If this thing comes down below 250, I'll start buying them. I think they're right now in the high 200s. If I can get them down under $200, I'll buy as many as you all want to sell me, because I think it's one of the more rare Pikachu cards that exist out there, at least in the era that this came from. It's the best Pikachu, in my opinion. Look, there's people on here that know Pokemon 1,000% more than I do. So I'm probably sounding like kind of an imbecile and a novice. But I was an imbecile and a novice in the stock world. And I found my little niches and I made my plays and I did well. So you don't have to be the most. I've never played the game of Pokemon. People are going to be in the chat probably like, oh, this is an outsider. He never even played the game before. You don't have to play the game of Pokemon to enjoy the cards and want to collect them or invest in them. People get these holier than thou righteousness about themselves. Like, if you're not a true player of the card game, then you shouldn't be talking about Pokemon to anybody. To each their own. Everybody should have their own little space.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. That gets thrown around so much, a true collector, or it's crazy that all the things people come up with like that should like qualify you to be able to collect or invest in this stuff. It's kind of crazy.
If you're not a painter, how dare you go buy paintings? Right? If you were my size, 5'9", 155 pounds, how dare you buy football cards? You never played football. Why do you buy football cards, dude? Come on, you're not a football player. I mean,
where are you? I don't know how long you've been following Pokemon content. How long have you been following this type of content on here?
The last maybe couple years.
All right, perfect. So where do you stand on the whole vintage modern thing? I mean, actually here, let's back up on that. Let's go to this first. What similarities, what differences do you see from when you called up whoever you called up to come back up that truck and take all that old, on 90 sports cars that weren't selling, to now all this Pokemon Steel product now? Do you see any similarities? Is that even possible? Or is it basically completely different, two sides of the spectrum? What do you think about that?
There is no going back to that. I just don't see it in the cards, pun intended. I don't see it in the cards. It's just too many people have seen what they've seen, like you said, with social media and with everything going on in the collectible space. I don't think it can go back to that. Now, can it drip down a little bit? For sure. There's going to be ebbs and flows. It won't, I can't see it crashing. Right. If I saw that as a potential, I wouldn't be going in heavily and buying, spending 800 grand on cards. I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it seems like that to you, but it just seems like society's just had a major shift. It just seems like the things like that our parents or grandparents valued are completely off from what we and your kids and our kids are going to value in the future. It's just like our lifestyles have changed. Just being engulfed in social media and like in a community based around whatever hobby you're in has changed. And I just think comparing this to any collectible that was in the 90s, 80s, 70s, it's just, I don't like the comparison. I know people always like to draw comparisons, like to look to other things, but I just feel like it was a completely different world. Do you agree with that?
There's going to be people, look, there's just pessimistic people. There's just negative people out there.
Yeah.
And I'm sure this is going to blow up in your comments. Like they're just negative people. They always want to look at the downside of everything. The glass is always half empty, and blah blah. They're the Eeyore from, they're just like Debbie Downer, like wah wah. Like I don't want to hang out. I don't want to go smoke a cigar or have a drink with that person. There's like I don't want to be around that. Like I'm about being real. Like I'm not a forever optimist and everything is always going to go up. It'll never go down. No, I didn't say that today. I'll never say that. I've lost money in stocks. I've lost money in cards. John Morant. I was buying a ton of John Morant cards over the last couple of years. Then he starts waving a gun around on social media, and I lost half the value of. I probably lost 15 grand on John Morant because the dummy's out there waving a gun around. Stuff happens, right? Look, the market could come down. I may go in heavy, or I might just keep my position and just ride it back to where I think it'll come back up again.
I mean, from what you've shown, you've got, kind of all across the board. I mean, it's sealed, it's modern, it's vintage. I mean, I know you probably, seen some of those debates back in the day. It was like modern versus vintage was like a huge thing for a while. I mean, where are you at with all that? Like, I know you got the Pikachu, you said you'd buy a bunch of them. They drop under a certain price. How do you feel about that? I mean, do you think that the tides will turn and things will back to vintage, whether it be with sports vintage or Pokemon vintage, or do you think modern is, this is going to be the one that actually continues to see the intense growth, and vintage has kind of already seen its growth, and it might have like, slow to, a slow, steady rise, but the money to be made is in the modern investments?
Yeah, that's very great, interesting question to me. So when I started learning about Pokemon, and I asked somebody, my first question to somebody on Facebook, when Champions, it was Hidden Fates.
Yep.
That's when I got into Pokemon. I asked a guy who I was a flipper I was trying to buy from. I said, I want to learn about this because I'm going to Target to buy sports cards and people are freaking out about Pokemon. So I want to figure this whole thing out. And he's like, well, go and watch YouTubers and you'll learn about Pokemon. So I started watching as many YouTubers as I could find. And a lot of that 2 years ago, they were like, vintage. And I'm like, well, how in the world am I ever going to find vintage? Unless I'm going to go out and pay retail and these skyrocketing prices, which I was not a fan of going out and paying the inflated prices at what I felt at the time. And so I was just buying the new stuff that came out. And then I started figuring out, hey, maybe I can find people that have collections and, buy collections that way and get some vintage that way. So I started doing that. And then in recent times, in the last 12 months, like vintage has kind of slid back off of people's radars, and the modern stuff seems so damn hot. Like, Evolving Skies and the Moonbryon and the waifu stuff. I mean, all that stuff it's really neat. Because when I was talking to people about collections, trying to find people who want to sell their Pokemon stuff, I was looking for vintage because I was told on YouTube that's what I should look for. And people who had modern, I'm like, well, I don't really want the modern stuff. So I just passed on the modern stuff. And some of that probably had some pretty cool full art stuff and some, hot chick female trainer cards that people are all freaking out about. I probably passed on some of that stuff because it wasn't valuable, but now it is. So that's the fun part of this. It's like you can make money when everything's hot. And if you want to flip it and go buy more cards, or if you want to hold it, hoping it stays up and to the right and stays hot, I don't know. I don't have that crystal ball. Frankly, I feel when I look at my experience going back to the mid 80s when I got into cards in the first place, back then, vintage was always strong. and always has remained strong. The new stuff was hot when it came out and then kind of cooled off. I think the vintage Pokemon stuff, from the base set all the way through, like I've got, a half a box of sealed Sky Ridge booster packs, for example. I'm never going to get rid of it. I just think that like it's rare. When are you ever going to find that? It's hard to find it. So at $1,000 a pack right now, could I sell it for $1,000 pack? Well, if I needed the money, maybe I'd consider it. I don't need the money. And do I think it's going to be a $2,000 pack one day or a $3,000 pack one day? I think when many, many, many new collectors come in tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, 10 years from now, and they want to build a collection and they want some of the stuff that goes back in time, they're going to have to pay up to go get that stuff. So the demand they're not printing any, they're not making any new beachfront property. Okay. They're not making vintage anymore. So, it's either going to be slabbed or it's going to be sealed. The sealed continues to get opened. So that's going to rise in price. I just think vintage is a good, safe play.
Well, beachfront property is all going to be underwater, right?
Yeah. The next tier back, maybe beachfront with the global warming, I guess, right?
Well, because all the rich people are still buying it. The banks are still giving loans on it. The insurance companies are still insuring it, but it's all going to be gone. No, but like, so that kind of brings up a great point though, is like, it's going to keep, as things keep rising. Do you think a price point is going to become an issue? So, obviously there's people like you, there are people that have a lot of funds out there, but the majority of people obviously don't. So, do you think the price point is going to become an issue with liquidity and also with just finding enough buyers? So as far as like, kind of talking about that Pikachu, you could say it drops to $200. You could buy, 10 of those Pikachus for $2,000, or let's make a bigger number. You could buy 100 of those Pikachus for $20,000, or you could buy a $20,000 vintage card. In my mind, I just see that Pikachu being able to get to 250, 300 before that vintage card can get to, $30,000, $40,000.
I wish I had the answer to that. That one baffles me. And let me just humble myself with your audience. When I go to card shows, it's different from when I used to do shows back in the late 80s. Okay, it's just different. Like I've done 3 shows in the last year, my son and I.
What do you mean by did? You mean like a vended or it just went?
Vending.
Vended,
yeah.
Okay.
So I used to vend them all the time. Now I've done 3 shows where we had a table selling cards, and I'm mostly in buy mode. I barely sell anything, but we went and we were selling some cards, and I'm at the show and I'm seeing kids, dude, that are like 17-year-old kids walking around with cards like Joe Burrow autograph or whatever, like $5,000 cards, $3,000 cards. And I'm like, when I go to these shows, I'm looking at $100 cards. I'm looking at $250 Pikachu cards or a base $150 Joe Burrow card. And then there's kids and grown-ups, all these people walking around with these high-level cards. And I'm like, where did they get the money for this stuff? I'm worth a ton of money. I can afford to go into a show and buy complete tables if I want to. I don't. But to answer your question, I don't think that there's a lack of people with money to buy these cards. I see them every time I go to a show. And here's what's happened. I've talked to some of them because I want to learn. They level up. They start off with nickel and dime cards, like $5, $10 cards, and then they start getting into $100 cards, and then they sell a bunch of those or trade up to a $1,000 card, and they had that milestone in their career, their collective, and they finally get their first $1,000 card, and all of a sudden that becomes their norm, and now they're just dealing in nothing but $1,000 cards, and then they get their first $5,000 card, so they level up. Like when I first started buying stock in 1999, 2000. I was buying 20 shares, 100 shares. Now when I buy shares, like with Sirius, I bought 60,000 shares. Like I leveled up. I play at a higher level now, but you have to scale into that. So there's a lot of people in the card game, whether it's sports or Pokemon, that are at different phases right now. There's a whole bunch of people that are buying cards that are $50 cards. But a year from now, they might be $500 cards.
Yeah, actually, that's I get in debates with people about that too, is because people always want to talk about like the average, I guess, income in America or median net worth, all that. I just feel like I want to know your experience, because my experience in this hobby is I haven't met anyone yet that one, doesn't have at least somewhat decent job, doesn't have, a good amount of like disposable income to put into Pokemon, that doesn't have high end, cards or boxes or items. And you constantly hear all these people of they're maxing out credit cards. No one has any money. And I'm not seeing it. So it seems like there's tons of money that people in this hobby have. And everyone I've talked to has had a good head on their shoulders. I mean, they're smart, they're intelligent, they have realistic expectations. They're not just like, thinking everything's going to the moon and I'm going to get rich quick. So what's been in your experience with everyone that you've kind of met throughout the hobby? Is it similar to that, or are you finding those like?
I think you're talking to all those kind of people. I see a whole cross section. I mean, like there are plenty of people, whether it be in Pokemon or sports cards, that are broke. Okay. And their spouse is mad at them for spending every last dollar they got on cards because they're addicted to them. I see that. I see it on YouTube. I see it in person. So I think people need to be. That's why this, right? Have a wealth building mindset, and part of it is having a budget. Be disciplined, because if you don't have self-discipline, the world will discipline you. Like if you're spending more than you should on cards, or if you're a gambler and you're just buying a bunch of packs to open, hoping you're going to get a card that's going to make you more money off that box. Like I'll be transparent here. My son and I opened about 50 or 60 Champions Path ETBs, chasing Charizards.
You get any?
We lost money on that.
Did you get any though? Did you find it?
We found like 4 of them.
Okay.
But we lost money. So, but I can afford that. My son couldn't, so he was opening a lot of my boxes. But I can afford to have that fun. But I can afford it. But if you can't afford it, don't be addicted and go do that stupid stuff. Now, those boxes that I was buying for $50 back then at Target, you can sell a Champions Path ETB now for, I think, what, like, I don't know, $100. So
yeah, somewhere around there.
So I probably could have saved it and doubled my money in the last 2.5 years. And people are like, that's all? Doubling your money in 2.5 years is amazing. So I lost money ripping the product. If I just kept it sealed, I would have doubled my money. So, but here's the thing. Let me say this again. I wish there was one of the things that bums me out about the world we're living in now is all the armchair quarterbacks, the Monday morning quarterbacks that have never played football, but they're complaining about how their team did everything wrong on Sunday. Like all the people that think they are the God's gift to Pokemon. Like I see people arguing with you or other PokeTubers in their chat, like telling you that you're wrong. Well, how are they so right? Like, let's interview that person that thinks they're so right all the damn time. Show us your numbers. Show us what you did. How much more money have you made in cards? Or why is it that, because my appeal to everybody is just stop always trying to be right. Be humble. Like we're all just people trying to get through this thing called life. And if we enjoy something like a hobby like this, or this is one of our investment things that we do, just praise each other, help each other, lift each other up. No, it doesn't take anything from your candle to light somebody else's candle. Your candle's still lit. Just give some love, man. Stop. When I see the negativity, and there's always these people that are like, oh, I hate all the positive people all the time. I'm just trying to be rude. I wouldn't want to be your spouse. My God. So anyway.
No, I love it. That's so funny, man. What's your schedule like? How much time you got?
Here's what's funny about this. I don't know if I said to you or I was Zoom I was doing with a new business partner earlier.
Yeah.
People pay me $1,000 an hour to do consulting type stuff for business stuff. And I don't do much of that. I could do a lot.
We're right at about an hour. So I guess my bill's at 1,000.
but my point is that I try not to do a lot of that because I have other things I can do to make money, and it's residual type money. We've been on here for an hour and you're not paying me $1,000. And I'm having a ball doing this. This is an important point. I love talking cards. This hour has flown by. I'm enjoying this. And I'm not getting paid to do this. Like if you want to send me some money, cool. I'm just kidding. But it's just, I'm enjoying this. So I say all that to say that's what Pokemon is all about. That's why the longevity of this industry is going to be forever. Like there's going to be a lot more people that are going to be like me, like you, like all the viewers on here that 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now are still going to be enjoying talking about cards. Maybe at that point they're doing it with their kids, collecting cards, looking at their cards, buying more cards, selling their cards. It's just fun. And if you make it fun and you can actually gain value at the same time, having fun and making money at the same time, I love what we do.
Absolutely. Do you have a little bit of time?
Yeah, we can do a few more. Yep.
All right, cool. You want to take some questions?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So someone's been kept asking me to ask this, but yeah, you know SM Pratt, so you know his thing's always the older rare, the minter the better. Where do you stand on all that? I mean, is that pretty much the guidelines you go down, or you kind of veer off from that? What do you think?
I believe in that. I believe you said the older the rare and the mintier.
Yeah, older, rare, minter, better.
Yeah. I 100% agree. You look at sports cards. There's on my son's wall in his bedroom, there is an article from a local newspaper back in 1987, a story about me as a baseball card dealer. And I was in the interview, they said, what are some of your best cards? And I was holding up a Pete Rose from 1967, Mark McGwire, 1985 rookie, and some other like Willie Mays card. And they weren't very valuable. They were worth maybe, $20 to $100 at the time. And they said, what is the Grail card? What is the card that you would love to own? I said, a 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle. And at that time, it was worth $4,500 is what the article even quoted me. That card now in a PSA 9 just sold for, I think, like $8 million. So, the older PSA 10, I mean, look, cards get handled. They get dropped. They get damaged. So sealed gets opened and cards get damaged. So if you've got slabbed 10s of vintage stuff, I think that's a really safe play.
Okay. All right. Someone asked too about your books. Does Brian have his books at Barnes & Noble?
They're not at Barnes & Noble. They are on Amazon. They are paperback or Kindle. The Untrapped, which is one that would apply to all your audience. It's general audience for everybody. It has nothing to do with marketing businesses. The Untrapped is also on Audible. So if you like to listen to audiobooks and if you want to get financially free, then get Untrapped on Audible and listen to it when you're driving to work or whatever. And I think you'll get a good mindset shift. So
perfect.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, that's so much of this is mindset. I mean, with any investing, you wake up and you look at your charts and you get a big punch to the face and you're down X amount and you're thinking, I'm so stupid. I'm the dumbest person in the world. And you want to sell. And then the next day it's up and now you're feeling like a genius and you're telling everyone, hey, guess what? I made this much. And it's really important to keep an even keel mindset, have the funds, to be able to invest and not need the money tomorrow. But yeah.
So speaking of mindset, I'll share something with everybody. Money like water seeks its own level. Money like water seeks its own level. Here's how I want to encourage everybody to do in the chat. Write that, type that in and submit it as a comment. Money like water seeks its own level. By you typing that in the chat right now, you're going to remember it because you took action on just typing that that comment. So just do that one little action right now.
What does it mean?
And I'll tell you what it means. But I want everybody to remember that. Money like water seeks its own level. If you have a bucket with a bunch of rocks, you pour water in it, it's going to go as low as it can go. So your income is going to go to who you are. Like if you're a $30,000 a year person, you're not going to suddenly someday make $100,000 because the value that you bring to the marketplace is $30,000. So you need to grow the value that you provide. Like if you can provide $100,000 worth of value because you're a $100,000 person, then you'll start making $100,000 a year. If somehow you get lucky, you see people that win the lottery, they come into $10 million and then 5 years later, there's a documentary about them and they're broke.
Right.
Because they weren't millionaires. They got money, but they weren't a millionaire in their mindset, in their skills and their value that they have. So anybody that wants to increase their net worth and have more money, find a way to bring more value to people. So I became a big proponent of personal development. You're going to be the same person 5 years from now that you are today, except for the people that you surround yourself with and the books that you read. Now, most people, after they get out of school, they stop reading books, or they don't read books that are going to grow them. They read Lord of the Rings or stuff that's fiction. And that's fun for entertainment value, but how are you going to grow yourself? Have you read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill? Have you read How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie? Have you read Magic of Thinking Big by Dr. David Schwartz? Have you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki? And by the way, I'm not reading a screen with a list of these books. They're on the top of my head. Why? Because I've read them many times, and I tell everybody about them all the time. I've got a friend of mine who's a best-selling author, Darren Hardy. He wrote The Compound Effect. And what that basically means is you're not going to change your life in one big fell swoop in one day. Like, you're not going to go to the gym one day, work out for 12 hours, and suddenly you're buff. It's the little things compounded over time. Like, you need to go to the gym for 12 months, a couple hours a week, and you're going to change your physique, right? So in whether it's Pokemon, collecting or investing, or whether it's just you becoming a better person, if you could get 1% better a week, in 2 years, you're 100% better.
Absolutely.
If you get 1% better a day, what if you read one chapter of a great personal development book a day, and it made you 1% smarter and better? Then guess what? In 100 days, in 3.5 months, you're 100% better than the person you were before. So it's not you against the world, it's you against you. Like, you don't have to compete against Alex or me or anybody else. Don't go on social media. The comparison is a thief of joy. Don't compare yourself to everybody else that's living these great lives. It's going to make you a miserable person.
Absolutely.
My friend Grant Cardone is out flying around in his jet and buying $1 billion of properties and all that. When I compare myself against him, I get sad. I want to cry. He's my friend. I should be happy for him. And it's not me. I shouldn't compete against Grant. I need to compete against me. Like, a month from now, a year from now, will I be better than I am today? Will I be better? Will I have more? Will I be more? Will I do more? Will I give more? So I just want to encourage everybody to think about money like water seeks its own level. Like, don't say, I wish I was Alex. I wish I had all of his boxes of sealed product. You can let it inspire you. Take that exampleship, but you be the best you can be. Start investing 10% of your paycheck into yourself. Put it away. The biggest advice I'll give you with regards to this is get a separate bank account that you don't spend money out of. You should have your main bank account that you operate and pay your bills out of. But you need a second bank account that is your wealth account that you pay yourself 10% of your paychecks into and that you never touch. It's not your rainy day fund. It's not like if something happens, I got to go dig into that. No. You use that money to invest, whether it's in stocks, mutual fund, Pokemon, whatever that investment's going to be.
Yeah, out of sight, out of mind with it too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you got to be disciplined. You can't liquidate your investments to go buy a watch or to take a trip or to take your girl out to dinner. No, that comes out of your operating account. Your investments never steal from your future to pay for something today.
That's it right there. That's a perfect way to put it. Yeah, don't steal from your future to pay for. Yeah, that's everyone. If you didn't take notes on that, that's pretty much the whole mindset to have when investing in anything, basically. Hey, you caught the stream yesterday, so what'd you think about that stream? Someone wants to know what you think of the best sets in Sword and Shield. That's kind of when you started investing in sealed products. So
yeah,
what are your kind of takes?
I mean, I love Brilliant Stars and I love Crown Zenith. Those are my favorite two. Now, Evolving Skies, I didn't get in on it. So for whatever reason, I just didn't. I don't have access to a distributor. I need to go get that part figured out. I've got a guy I found who actually does have direct access to a distributor, and he passes stuff along to me when I want it now. Like at a few dollars over his cost. So that's pretty nice. But I didn't get Evolving Skies on that. At this level, I'm not buying into Evolving Skies. I will, by the way, I will regret that in 5 years. I will. I just admit it now. Just like saying, I don't want to buy Apple right now. I don't want to buy more Apple at $196. Well, In 5 years, if it's at 300, I'll be like, shit, why didn't I buy even more? So that's just the way it works. I'm a bargain hunter, right? So I think like Brilliant Stars got a little reprint, so it's I think those two. I don't know why, by the way. I don't have data to back it up. I like Brilliant Stars. I think things will circle back to Charizard always, even though other characters are getting more popular right now, and the Charizard's been kind of sliding a little bit. Charizard was the hottest thing forever. Like since the beginning of Pokemon time, Charizard has been number one. It's okay for it to not be number one in people's minds right now. People are Charizarded out. That's cool. And I think the Charizard UPC caused the Charizard to kind of finally fall out of the number one slot.
Yeah, that's what did it. Yeah.
By the way, in the last handful of months, I bought cases of Charizard UPCs. It's just, I mean, the promo cards are going to be good for long term, but I think that just the packs in them will always appreciate over time. So, that's my answer to that question.
All right. I know Dan, Catch 'em All Collectibles, he was biting at the bit to ask you this question. So here it is. I hope I like the answer, but we'll see. It may not be what I like. Here you go. Which is better, tax advantage productive assets or modern sealed with that 10%?
Tax advantaged productive assets. Is that like a rental property?
Like a tax advantage stock market account, or Pokemon investments, like modern sealed investments.
So help me understand, tax advantage productive asset. Is that a rental property, or is that like putting money into a SEP IRA or a 401k?
Yeah, I think he usually talks about putting money I don't know what it is. If it's a SEP or if it's a Roth but a tax advantaged brokerage account, not real estate or anything like that.
Okay. So there's two avenues that have tax advantages, like deferring taxes, putting tax deferred money into an investment, like a SEP IRA. Basically what that means for anybody that doesn't know what he's talking about, you're basically, usually you earn your income, you pay your taxes, and then whatever is left over, you can go invest it or do what you want to do with it. A tax deferred investing method is, let's say you make $100,000. Normally, let's say you're in the 30% tax bracket. There isn't one exactly, but let's say you're paying 30% taxes. You make 100, you pay your 30 in taxes, you got 70 left over, you spend it, invest it, whatever you want to do. Tax deferred means you make your 100, you can take a piece up to the legal limit and invest it before paying taxes. And you'll only pay taxes on that money when you take it out of that IRA or whatever you invested in many years down the road after it's grown a ton. So that's always smart to max out your max contribution to a tax deferred investment like that. When you become more able to start getting into real estate, there's a reason why Grant Cardone and many other people are big investors in real estate. Not only does real estate typically over time appreciate in value, you also can have rental income. So it cash flows, assuming you buy it right and you manage it right. So you don't have a lot of vacancy. Hopefully everything's not breaking down and you're charging enough in rent. So with all that considered, you're still cash flowing positive each year, but you also get depreciation. And right. Depreciation, for anybody who's got any kind of a net worth, you want to invest in real estate so you get that depreciation against the taxes that you would normally be paying. That's why when people say, there's a lot of financially ignorant people out there that will say things like, Donald Trump is a scam artist. How can he ever be a president of this country? He pays no taxes. He's un-American. No. All the companies and businesses that he runs and owns pay sales taxes, income taxes, or whatever. Now, he, as the holder of those companies, he's got a ton of real estate. And the real estate tax laws are such that he can use the depreciation on all the money that he has put into the investments of that real estate to go against him paying personal income tax. At some point, it will catch up. At some point, the depreciation runs out. At some point, he's got so much income, he will pay taxes. He's paying taxes on the front end, not paying taxes on the mediary or the back end right now. So it's like people, Alex, saying, that stock is expensive at $100 a share. I want to buy this stock over here because it's only $1 a share. The share price does not mean a stock is cheap or expensive. Matter of fact, a $100 share of stock could be very cheap if the PE ratio is really low. The $1 share of stock could be wacky expensive if the company's losing money and has no foreseeable profits in the future. So many people in the stock market investing that don't know what they're talking about sound stupid when they say a stock is cheap at 100 and expensive, cheap at $1 and expensive at 100. So if you don't know Pokemon, you might say this card is cheap at $5, but when it could be actually expensive is if the pop is insane. So again, people just say things and they want to act like they know what they're talking about, and they don't. Now, hopefully today, I'm just giving you all my perspective, my opinions. I don't have the right answers. I don't purport to have the right answers. So hopefully from the hour plus that we've been on here, I'm not right about all this. I'm just telling you what I think.
So where do you think Pokemon falls into all that, like for investment wise then?
As far as measuring it against I would say always max out your tax advantaged productive assets that your viewer is asking. Always max that out.
Okay.
That's just a smart thing to do. It's traditional. It's a smart play. And then beyond that, sealed Pokemon's a great play. And I think the tax advantage, if you're going to, by the way, if you put your money into a SIP IRA or whatever, it also needs to be managed by somebody who's parking it in the right assets that are going to do well over time.
Yep.
Like if it's a S&P index fund, over time, you're solid. If they're doing something speculative, it might go up or down. The modern Pokemon sealed stuff, if I buy a booster box at 140 today, and if it's at 240 in 2 years, that's a stinking home run. It really is.
Absolutely. Brian, you got any other closing thoughts? Anything else you wanted to cover while we're on?
I mean, look, let me just say this. I don't want to be preachy, but just
I don't think anyone here feels that way. I mean, I think the chat's been really appreciative of all the knowledge you've got. I mean, I think we had 100 people type the money is like water, its own level. I mean, or seeks its own level. So I mean, yeah, I think everyone's pretty engaged. So don't feel that way.
Good. I anything I do, I just want to bring value to people. There's nothing I'm doing on here to try to make money. I'm not, here's the interesting thing. So Gary V, anybody do this. I would love to. I can't see it now in StreamYard. I can't see what you see because I'm not the host, but I'll go back and look and check this later, and I'll look at the comments. Type Gary V plus or minus in the comments if you like or don't like Gary V. I would love to see if people like or don't like Gary V. So, and you're not right or wrong either way. You like or like.
I love the guy. I love his message, especially, the message about, about success, just about like finding a different definition of success in your own life than what's portrayed on us by the world. It's almost like the whole like Shark Tank thing when you have like Mark Cuban and them saying like, hey, I'll work 60 hours a week for myself. I don't have to work 40 for someone else type thing. It's just, there's so many different levels of success out there where some people just don't want to think, right? They just want to wake up, go do a job, have the money put into a 401k where it's invested for them, come home, relax, enjoy their family and kids and not think about money. And so it's like everyone's success is different. And like, I love that message that he portrays.
All right. So the reason I agree. So the reason why I'm asking about him, what everybody's opinions are, because everybody after this show, they're going to have an opinion of me. Some people say, Brian, other people's opinions of you is not your business. But that's hard to live out. Like, I do care what people think of me.
Everyone does. Yeah, everyone.
But you see a lot of people like, don't worry about that. You're going to have haters. And Grant Cardone says, if you don't have enough haters, then you're not doing big enough things. I get that. And I agree with that. But I don't like when anybody hates me. Like, I just don't like it. So, but I accept that it's going to be a reality. Like, there's probably people, Alex, that don't like the color of the paint on your walls behind you. I mean, people just are just negative people. So I say all that to say, like Gary V, I like Gary V. He's not popping up on my feed, I guess, because I haven't watched him lately. So I know he doesn't pop up anymore. So, but I like his stuff. I like his attitude, I like his mindset. I like what he does to help give people belief that they can be successful if they just want to go for it in life. I like that he wants people to be entrepreneurs and not just fall into a trap of just, working a dead end job and being miserable. So I like all that stuff about him. But with regards to cards, he got a lot of flack when he posted pictures of him buying a bunch of Giannis rookies or Luka Doncic rookies. And when he did that on his social media, because he has millions of followers, the card prices instantly of those cards went up, and everybody called him a pump and dumper. And I don't know. I've met him, but I don't know Gary. I don't know if he actually sold them right away when they did spike. He may have, I don't know. But what's sad about it is people are so skeptical, pessimistic, and just full of vinegar, where they look for everything that can possibly be a wrong, and they just assume that. So for all the good that Gary V did for the card collecting space, bringing it to new people, like Gary V, when I was getting back in, when I was watching him talking about going to yard sales or buying cards and all that, I love that stuff. It got me into the game. I put 800 grand of my money into the collective pot. I helped the hobby values go up by me injecting my new little bit of money. In the grand scheme of thing, my 800 grand is little, right? But people like Gary, we should want influencers. We want Drake opening up basketball cards online. We want this kind of stuff happening. We want Logan Paul buying a $5 million card. Why? It's just exposure. It just gets more people to know about it, right? So if you're negative about Gary V, I just want to encourage you to step back today and just pause and ask yourself, why? Are you jealous of the guy? What has he done that has rubbed you the wrong way? Has he morally hurt you or broken you in some way? Or maybe were you just thinking about him in a different way? I'm not saying in the wrong way, in a different way. I would just say, look for the good in all people until they have really hurt you and you've seen true proven evidence, real life evidence that they've done wrong and that they're intentionally doing wrong by people. Look for the good in people. Like, I've never heard you say anything wrong against my belief system. So I've seen nothing but good stuff from you and your content. But I look for it. Maybe you've offended me and I wasn't paying attention for it because that's not how I'm wired.
Well, it's funny because it's like we're all, because people get platforms, they get put on a pedestal and they get, things taken so much drastically. But it's like, if you go walk into a local event or a card show or a shop or in front of your group of people and you say you like something, it's no big deal. Everyone just, laughs it off. It's no business as usual. Okay, cool. You likes that. But then as soon as an influencer says, hey, I found these cards, I really like them. Well, now immediately they're pumping it. There's some nefarious scheme behind it. It's like, in reality, a lot of the people watching them probably didn't even know whatever those cards existed or were still out there. They all saw it for the first time. It's not that he pumped it. It's they all found it again together and said, hey, I like this. Hey, that's a reasonable price. I can afford it. I have the money. I'm going to buy it. So they're not buyouts. They're not manipulation. It's just different groups of people finding different parts of the hobby at different times. And collectively, they want to buy something they actually like. That's how I see it.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, and by the way, the flip side of it, because I see everybody's got a reason for feeling the way they feel. When you see the buyouts or you see a pump, and look, there is pumping. And if somebody wants to pump, and they figure out how to leverage some kind of influence to do it, and then they want to sell it, they're going to do that. Are they an evil person for doing it? No, they're capitalists. They're entrepreneurs. They're trying to find a way to, like if I'm a real estate agent and Alex, I list your home to sell it for you. My job is to go out there and pump your house in the marketplace to get the biggest sale price for you. That's my duty as your agent, to get you the most money for your house. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to take the best pictures. I'm going to make sure the yard looks great, put the best brochures out there. I'm going to pump your house. It's not a pump and dump unless I try to get more for your house. And I knew your house had somebody that was murdered in the basement and there was still blood on the walls, or there was a crack in the foundation. I covered it up. I mean, like that's like a pump and dump. Like you're doing something what you shouldn't do, but trying to get the most value out of an asset of yours there's nothing wrong with that. right? So, but again, there are people that are trying to manipulate the market. And again, I don't have hate for that. They're trying to find a way to buy assets, get more eyeballs on it, get more people to want that card in their PC. Like, I'll give you an example. There's a black and white 1990 score Bo Jackson card where he's wearing football shoulder pads. He's got a baseball bat over his shoulder. It's an iconic card. Yeah. You can buy it raw for like $5 or $10. Grade it 10, and it sells for about $250, $300. I was buying a couple hundred of them, and I was grading them, and I was getting in 8s, 9s, and 10s. So I was making some money on them. If I went online and I showed a bunch of my Bo Jackson cards, and let's say I had a big following, I'm like, man, this is an iconic card. I'm investing in this thing. I think everybody should have it in their collection. And everybody wanted to go buy one because I let them know how badass the card is. And they're like, yeah, man, I want one of those too. I shouldn't be a villain for doing that, right? But again, that's just how I feel. Now, people right now, Alex might say, well, Brian finally revealed himself. He actually is not as nice of a guy as he has been for the first hour and 10 minutes. Now we finally see he's an evil guy. I just don't see that as evil. And
think about this. And like you could be the same exact person like me. It's like 2 years ago, before I had any YouTube or anything, right? I could be out and talking to people and trying to say something, and it falls on deaf ears. Now I could say it on a channel, and now I'm trying to pump something. And then if I had like 100,000 or 1 million subscribers, then it would be like, oh my gosh, it's the biggest scam in history. Same person, same exact idea, just a different amount of people listening to it. Really strange.
99% of those people that are calling it scam and negative about it, they're just jealous. So again, it's you versus you. It's not a viewer versus Alex in that scenario. The viewer just need to say, good for you, Alex. I love your example. You're killing it, brother. Now I'm going to go out and do me. I'm going to go out and be the best me I can be. I'm going to go find the product I want to go out there and go deep on, and hope that everybody else feels the same way about it and it gets more popular and the value goes up. So, people just need to stop always hating on stuff and just start working on themselves, and you'll be happier. Again, joy, comparison is the thief of joy. And I've got to live by that, because even though I do really well, I look at some of my friends that have jets. They don't fly commercial. I mean, here's another point. I could buy my own plane if I want to right now. I still fly coach, because in my money mindset book, I talk about opportunity cost. Why would I go spend 10 grand each way on a flight when I can fly the same place for $500? I'd rather take that $9,500 and invest it. And every 7 years at 10% compounded return, I can double it every 7 years. Yeah. So that 950 is actually 1,900 in 7 years, or it's 3,800 in 14 years. If I'm just getting 10% return, if I put it in Pokemon, I can even, accelerate that. So opportunity cost. So anyway, we can go
before we leave. What's the one best play in the market right now, Brian? Where should people be going right now?
I can't answer that. I can't answer that. And okay, here's the thing: if I answered that and people lost money, there'd be lawsuits or haters. If I answered it and people made a bunch of money on it, they'll be asking for that advice again, and then they'll wait until I give them an idea that didn't work out, and then I'll be the villain. It's like it's the world we're living in, man. It's the world we're living in.
Well, guys, I'm going to share this one more time with everybody. Wrong screen. Here we go. Hold on. All right. So here's Brian's Instagram. You go check him out. It's real Brian Carruthers. You can his website, just briancarruthers.com. That's where you can pick up any of his books that he was talking about if you want to read those. Other than that, it's been a real pleasure, man. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day. I'll try to scrape together another 1,000 to have you on for another hour in the future if you're gracious enough.
We're at an hour and a half. It's 1,500, brother.
All right. I'll flip some cards, man, because I'd love to have you back on the channel in the future, especially as the market keeps progressing, and just kind of get your thoughts again if you'd be open to it.
Yeah, I want to have you on one of my platforms. I don't have a card YouTube channel at this point. I probably will do that. I'm going to begin next month on writing a book about the card journey and investing in cards and all that kind of stuff. I'll be interviewing people. I'll probably get you interviewed and put you in the book. But anybody goes to my Instagram channel, my Instagram page. you'll see I've got a social media guy that just puts a bunch of funny reels on there for me that are just repurposed. And just, if you want to laugh, go look at some of those things. I've got a few things. I don't spend a lot of energy on my Instagram, even though it's there. So, you see a lot of followers. You don't see a lot happening on the page, but if you want to laugh, go check it out. You'll see a few personal posts of mine, maybe my kids at their age and all my travels and all the stuff I'm involved in. I'm just not putting a lot of energy into it. In the future, I will, but go check it out and follow it. I do sometimes post different things that might be helpful. If you felt like you learned anything, like the money like water seeks its own level, or anything we talked about here today, I always try to find ways to just get that out there to people that it might help. So
awesome. Well, that's it, guys. That's the show. Hope everyone got a lot out of it, and we'll see Brian again in the future. I'll see you guys here soon. We're out.